Hello and welcome to the Neo Marketing Podcast. Kyle Golding, Pritch Pritchard. Today we're going to talk about innovation that is client, customer centric.
Good.
Put the customer first, put the consumer first.
Yep.
Or the subheadline is Notes from the Chick-Fil-A drive-thru.
Welcome to the Golding Group Neo Marketing Podcast, a bi-weekly discussion of best practices, latest trends, and modern techniques for professional business communication, including advertising, marketing, digital channels, social media, public relations, and alternative options.
Good morning, Pritch. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Kyle. How about yourself?
Well, I just came back from the dentist, so I hope I speak clearly today because that is very important on a podcast, is to speak clearly with my nice, clean teeth. So luckily, I didn't have any sedation, so I should be fine.
Yeah, good.
No stutters for me today, hopefully.
Let's hope.
So today I want to talk about innovation.
Right.
Every business needs to innovate, and I think absolutely the COVID-19 scenario forced a lot of innovation and accelerated a lot of innovation for businesses, and for businesses that are surviving, maybe even thriving through COVID-19. It was changing their ideas and their approaches, and sometimes you had to adapt your technology. You had to innovate on the fly. And again, most businesses do this sort of slowly and over time, but sometimes things happen. COVID-19 is a perfect example, but it can just be competition or changes in the market that will allow for you to innovate. And so the folks who are the most innovative, the most progressive, the most looking forward are the most likely to be leaders first into the market with a new idea. It's risk, but there's always risk involved with business. Risk equals reward when it works out. And taking the attitude of always trying to innovate, even in small ways, in large ways, is super important for business. I think you would agree with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that the innovations we've seen as a result of the adjustment for COVID-19 are many of them are going to stay around for a while.
There you go. I came upon this idea for this podcast while sitting in the drive-thru of Chick-Fil-A.
Do tell.
And that's very important because Chick-Fil-A has an attitude of innovation.
And customer
Absolutely.
service.
And customer service for sure.
Yeah.
It's at their core. So when you think of a long line at a drive-thru restaurant,
forget it.
that's a negative, right?
I'm out.
It's a bad thing, right? But when you think of a long line at Chick-fil-A,
well, I might think twice.
right? There is still a possibility that you can get through a long line in Chick-fil-A quicker than you can get to a medium or short line in other fast food restaurants.
Well, and your experience illustrates that point.
That's right, exactly right. By the time I put together just a few notes on this idea while sitting in the drive-thru, I had my food and I was on my way. So we're going to break down the values of how you can assess this your business, not having to do anything with a drive-thru or fast food. It's just having the attitude of innovation and putting some core principles that Chick-fil-A really commits to.
Right.
So that's what we're going to talk about today.
Well, do me a favor and set the scene with how they innovated. I mean, what is innovative about the drive-thru? Okay.
So for anyone who maybe hasn't been to a Chick-fil-A, I think they're all over the country now, but if you haven't been there before, it's a fast food chicken place, right? The food is moderately good. That's one thing, too, about Chick-fil-A is the food is good. It's not exceptional, but they're very popular, and people are very committed to them because of the customer service aspect, and this definitely falls under their core values of customer service. So not only do they of course, we all know the drive-thru, right? It started off with a speaker. You couldn't understand what people were saying.
Right.
It was hard to read the board,
people
right?
Worked in bus terminals announcing
Raw, Charlie Brown's teacher, rah, wah, 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 wah. So every place that has a drive-thru has been trying to innovate and make those better with the message boards and how they do the speakers and how you could communicate with people, right?
Right.
Chick-fil-A was one of the first to go to a double drive-thru. So there were two lines that would come through and merge. And it sounds like that's a logistical nightmare, but they've always been really good at making that happen.
Right.
Well, now, specifically right now, today, because dining rooms are closed because COVID-19 has limited access to dining rooms, and specifically in a place like Chick-fil-A because their dining rooms are relatively small in footprint.
Right.
The drive-thru is it. This is the only way that they're going to do business, and there's delivery and some of those other things too, but the core of their business is doing it through the drive-thru, right?
Right.
So they had the dual drive-thrus. But there was still a logjam. There was still an opportunity for people to sit while someone was making a decision in front of them at the board.
Right.
Or a big order, maybe for the whole family or for the softball team or something like that.
Right.
That people 2 and 3 and 4 cars back who knew what they wanted, were ready to order, were being bottlenecked. So Chick-fil-A literally put their people out on the street. They put people into the drive-thrus. Now, because they are very concerned about their people, corporate culture is a big thing for them, and I've read lots of things about their corporate culture. They put safety gear on their people, and originally they were just doing the headphone set, right? The little headphone where they would come to your. So if you were second in line or third in line, the person would walk to your car. It would ask if you knew what you wanted. Started holding placards up with the little menus attached to it, and you would say yes, I want the number 2, the number 4. I'll have a Dr. Pepper to have the Polynesian sauce, all of this good stuff. And they would
relaying it like
on the radio,
like you're at the speaker.
So now the 2-lane drive-through became a 3-lane, 4-lane, 5-lane in essence.
Right.
As long as they had people inside who could take the order and put it in line and put it in the process.
Right.
At least they could get started preparing your meal.
Right.
So that was innovation number 1. Then they developed their own hardware where they could do a card reader and you could pay right there on the spot. And like an iPad type scenario where they would type the order in, and instead of calling it to a person who had the potential to hear it wrong or miskey it, they would send it in themselves. And now they've got to the point where they type it in on the pad. They let you look at it to see that it's right.
Confirm the
everything
order.
has got a photo next to it, the icons and everything. It's very easy to see. That's exactly what I wanted, what I ordered. And you can slip your card right into the front of the reader where they don't have to touch it, so it's contactless, etc. So again, innovation due to COVID-19 for sure.
Yeah.
So that's the differences in the drive, and not just one person, not two. I have been at the one I go to on a very regular basis near the office they have 2 lines with 2 boards. They have a third line because the business next to them is kind of far off. But they set up special when prime time, when they're really, and they put cones out there and have people directing. So they got 3 lines going, and sometimes in each of those lines they could have 2, 3, 4, or 5 people per line. So you have 10, 15 crew members. Now remember, they're not inside. They're not cleaning the interior, and they're not having to pick up trash inside and things of that nature. So no one's sitting at the counter inside waiting to take orders, but so they essentially move themselves from behind the counters out into the parking lot to do that in a more rapid fashion. But they get it right. They get it right every time.
Yeah.
I never get home and find something missing. I never get someone else's. They check, and all this stuff. So, so here are few tenets for any business to adapt to the ideas behind the Chick-fil-A drive-through innovations.
Gotcha.
First and foremost is their company culture.
Right.
Anyone who's ever heard anything about Chick-fil-A understands they have a very specific corporate culture and dedication to their mission statement, which is customer service. Like I said earlier, their food is good. It's not the best food in the world, but their customer service is through the roof. It's very obvious that their true north is customer service.
Right.
And they're also known for the fact that when you say thank you, they reply with, my pleasure.
My pleasure. There we go. Okay.
Every time.
I seldom go to Chick-fil-A, so.
It sounds like a very small thing, and it is a very small thing, but the dedication to it is the key. It means their training is very deep. It means that their corporate culture is very communicative. It means that people who work there understand it and value it as much as the people who wrote the rule that says we reply with my pleasure.
My pleasure.
It's a small thing, but it proves that their training and their corporate ideology goes all the way through.
Right.
So that's number 1, is that their corporate culture and their idealism comes. And at the end of the day, all of that feeds into brand.
Right.
It's the idea of what the brand is and what it stands for.
Yeah. And the semantics of that are important to consider, because your welcome is not the same as my pleasure.
Yes.
In terms of I'm inculcating this order, I'm inculcating you as a customer into the way that we do business.
It's not a standard throwaway response.
Right. Yeah.
Your welcome is
not
easy.
Not a pleasantry.
You're welcome. Don't worry about it. No problem.
Right.
That's all fine. And you have the potential for any crew member, and they're typically young people.
Right.
And we're talking about all over the country, right? So different regions, different dialects, different slang terms. There's all kinds of things your crew member could say. But yes, the dedication to not only having a corporate response, but going that extra step, which it is my pleasure to serve you.
Right.
That is what I am here for. I work for you. This is what you're defining when you say my pleasure, which is why it is so important to them. And as a consumer, it is comforting to hear it, even if you don't break it down in that level.
Right. Exactly.
So point number 2, keep it simple.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Chick-fil-A is a chicken restaurant.
Right.
They do chicken a few different ways, on sandwiches and nuggets and strips. They have some different dipping sauces. Of course, they have fries and some other things that come with it. They're originally developed in the South, so there's a little bit of Southern flair to it.
Right.
But it's not
Some
something
fried, mostly just
Right.
not baked, grilled.
grilled. There's
Which is healthier
fried
for
and
ya.
grilled, right?
Right.
There's a few variations, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And they don't go off and do burritos and pizzas and
Right.
hamburgers
Right.
or hot dogs.
Right.
They do chicken.
That's it.
They do chicken. They got a couple of salads on the menu. They got a shake. They got some soft drinks. But the menu is relatively simple, and from a logistical standpoint, ordering, storing, cooking,
Right.
the equipment needed to cook it, etc. They know exactly how much to have on hand. They know how many minutes it takes to get a chicken fillet cooked, to get a chicken strip done.
Right.
They know how to prepare ahead. They have predictive models about how much business they're going to do on an average Tuesday or Thursday at lunch or at dinner, etc., etc., etc.
Yeah.
They use all of this information to be super prepared.
Right.
Not to, I'm sure they use
Cover
it
the
to they
waterfront.
use it to predict their profitability.
Sure.
But more than anything, they do it to be prepared, effective, and efficient.
Yeah.
They could have a more expanded menu. They could be, the drive-through version of the Cheesecake Factory and have 500 items on there, right?
Right.
It just gets harder. It gets almost impossible to execute at that level of customer service, which again, their true north is customer service.
Yeah.
So they have nice food. They have a few variations that makes it interesting enough that you can go there on the regular. At the end of the day, most people go to Chick-fil-A and have a regular that they go to all the
Right.
time.
Yeah.
But you can try some new. You can do it in the morning. You do it in the evening. You can get the full meal. You can just get a side. You can just get a drink, and they know how to execute it.
Right.
So keeping it simple allows them to do that, be predictive in their business model, and then focus on customer service. The focus is always customer service. That's exactly what they hang their hat on for sure. So number 3. Chick-fil-A creates a demand for their product because of the customer service and this type of innovation.
Right. Okay.
So again, their food is good. It's not the best thing in the world. It is good. It's not Michelin star type food.
Right.
But being able to drive right in, get in and out quickly, have a positive customer service, have them not mess the order up. They
Right.
won't overcook it. They won't undercook it. They won't forget to put your sauce in. All of these things, all of those
Consistency.
details
Yeah.
is how they create demand.
All right.
And what they did was they actually took a negative, long lines in a drive-through
Right.
that every fast food place would and could and should have if they're popular,
Right.
because we all eat around the same time.
Right.
Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, it's all, there's a rush. There's all these peak demand hours.
Yeah.
So the idea of a long line, which frustrates consumers or just turns people off, they just keep driving, right?
Right.
They took that negative and they turned it into a positive by embracing innovation.
Yeah. Okay.
They could have sat back and said, well, that sucks.
Right.
Or everyone's busy at noon.
Right.
Noon on a Thursday, everyone is busy in this general area if you're in a business area or if you have high traffic, but they didn't. They took that negative and embraced it as a potential positive selling point that still feeds into the true north of their brand, which is customer service.
Okay.
So they had a technology response to customer service.
Right.
Again, not about the food. It's about customer service
Right.
and innovation.
Yeah. There you go.
There it is.
And we were talking before the show that, as you pointed out, there are some places where you see 4 cars in line, you're never going to
That's
go
right.
there because it's going to take them forever to get you in and out.
Yes. Speaking of chicken sandwiches, right? We all know Popeyes is a popular chicken sandwich. I've never actually had the Popeyes sandwich because every time I've gone to get it, Even with 2 cars in the drive-thru, I ended up driving away because it was multiple minutes, not 1 minute, not 2 minutes, literally a holy cow, something's going on here. I have to leave now. I've never gone through a drive-thru at Popeyes because they've never executed on the drive-thru at Popeyes.
Right.
Can you believe that or not, right?
Yeah, sorry, Popeyes.
Right.
Raise your game.
So the second half, though, this idea about creating demand, meeting the demand, and they took a negative, a potential negative, a hurdle, and they created a positive with it because, now here's the key, folks. Here's the whole key to the conversation today. They innovated, not for the sake of innovation, but they innovated for their consumer the way the consumer wanted them to.
All right.
One more time. You've got to get this.
Meeting
This is the key.
customer expectations.
That's right. They put the customer first.
Yep.
They understood the customer had an issue. They went to fix it. Let's get everyone from behind the counter out into the lanes. Let's just start fixing the problem. We'll figure out what it cost us and how to pay for it later.
Yep.
But they didn't raise their prices.
Right.
They figured it out. They amortized it into what they do. Now, they have the economy of scale. They're a large corporation that's in every state, as far as I know. I don't know if they're all 50, but probably. They're everywhere. There's thousands of Chick-Fil-A. So, 1 or 2% increase in cost they can amortize out. But a lot of people, when they think about how to improve their business, whether it's a technology, whether it's adding more people for customer service or delivery times or anything in the process where you say we need to do something different, add a piece of equipment, add a person, add a process, whatever it is, they still stop at one point and think, what does this cost us? Right. And they should.
Right. Exactly.
It's fine to understand the cost of it, but when cost drives your business and doesn't allow you to innovate, you have the potential for your competitors to move past you or your consumer to feel not valued and eventually sour on you, even if they're a fan of yours today.
Well, and in our experience, often when you put the dollar first, the customer ends up being last.
That's right. So when you think about the consumer first, when you put yourself in their shoes, literally go out and get in the drive-thru and see how aggravating this is. Is it frustrating? Look around the drive-thru. Is it are there families that have kids and kids have less patience than adults? Are there people who are at lunchtime? Are there people on their lunch break and they have a short amount of time? All these things that would make someone say, I'm not going back there again because my last experience was bad, or the flip. I'm going back there anytime and all the time because my experience was great. So Chick-fil-A started innovating. They started making changes. They figured out that the cost was going to be acceptable and that they wouldn't have to change prices or do other things that would be detrimental to the consumer.
Right.
And then they continued that innovation process. So they didn't sit around and complain. They didn't accept the status quo as the only opportunity, the only answer.
Right.
Long lines, it is what it is.
Right.
No one stopped there. They continued the idea of we can do better because our customers want it, because they need it, because they'll value it, and ultimately the extra cost, whatever the cost to innovate their own card readers and communication devices, and I'm sure there's software behind that. And if you've ever dealt with a point of sale system, the reason the abbreviation is POS is because point of sale systems, and we have a lot of restaurant clients, and point of sale systems are always a pain in the ass. They just are. A lot of legacy systems from the 70s and 80s that still exist today. And there's been innovation in that space. Square and some other people have come in and really pushed innovation in that space, but there's still a lot of dinosaur systems out there. So Chick-fil-A had to deal with how do we make this work on a point of sale system so that it gets logged in correctly so that the people ultimately at the window and running the cash register or doing the portables, we got payment, you got the items listed, they got cooked, put in the bag, the name on the bag, and then the person who was in the parking lot delivering to those people could match the name to the person. And again, they don't mess up. They don't get ahead of themselves about rush out there, well, I didn't put the sauce in, or rush out there without napkins, or I forgot their drink, or any of that stuff. They still are dedicated to the idea of delivering it correctly, but delivering it quickly. That means a ton of logistics on the backside. I don't know what it is. I've never seen them talk about it.
Right.
But I can guarantee you from doing smaller scale items that we've worked on that the logistics behind ordering, processing, managing, delivering, getting and receiving payment for food, especially in a rapid scenario like this, is difficult even in a small singular restaurant, much less a national chain.
Well, you're talking about the public-facing side of the business, and it'd be really interesting to see what innovations they created in the kitchen.
I guarantee
you
a
can't
lot.
keep that stuff going. It could back up just as easily in the kitchen as it could anywhere else.
Could you imagine if you had a business and you said, well, we'd like to add this to our business, but a machine doesn't exist for that yet, so we just won't do it. Well, that's a bad idea. It's a good way to miss opportunity. Then someone else develops it. Then you have to go buy their technology, which you're paying your competitor now. They're first to market. They've created the expectation that you now have to live up to. You're playing catch up as opposed to leading. Anyone who understands business understands leading is the best way to go. Following up in a us too scenario, consumers understand that as well.
Well, the old adage, the view from the back of the pack is always the same.
Right, exactly. Right.
It's not pleasant.
So they kept Chick-Fil-A. They stayed on their corporate culture and they kept to their true north of customer service. They keep their menus simple, which makes the logistics aspect better. Too many people try to think that their business has to have 2,000 SKUs of products in order to make money.
Right.
Chick-fil-A's doing it on 50. Keeping it simple, creating an actual demand because the innovation that they included, but ultimately they are creating and then meeting expectations.
Yeah.
We just said there might be 10 cars in line at Chick-fil-A. I'm getting in the line. I expect it to go quickly. I expect to get my food prepared at the way that I always get it, and I expect that everything in the bag is in the bag.
Right.
And I expect they will say my pleasure when I say thank you. And I get it every time.
Right, consistency.
If you create the expectation, if someone else comes out today and says we have the best drive-through process in the planet, you better live up to it.
Right.
So if you say, hey, you could come here for lunch, it doesn't matter there are 10 cars. All right, I'm going to give you a shot, maybe 2. Not a third time.
That's right.
If you hang your hat on our drive-thru is the best in the land and it's not, and in fact it's worse, then you've lied to me as a consumer and I'm not coming back.
It's going to hurt.
Even if your drive-thru line is short.
Right.
I'm still not coming back.
Right.
Because now when you say our food is delicious, our customer service is good, we treat you like family, whatever it is you say, I don't believe you because you create an expectation you can't meet.
Right.
Chick-fil-A created an expectation and they meet it on a regular basis. So it is a self-fulfilling prophecy, and it's the best example of how businesses are successful. Yep. Do what you do, stay in your lane, innovate for the consumer first, put them ahead of you, then figure out how to build profitability on the backside of it, and completely on the backside. Never let the consumer see that happening because they don't want to know, they don't need to know, and there's no benefit to them.
It's the sausage making.
Exactly. No one wants to see the sausage being made, or in this case, the chicken sandwiches being made. But set an expectation and live up to it, and then
Exceed
the dedication.
It when you can.
The dedication to this whole process.
Yeah.
We will not fail. We will not forget things. We will not say my pleasure. We won't skip that. We will say it every time. We won't take those things casual. The commitment to the brand and the culture, which now obviously reflects the training and the internal communication and a well-built, well-managed, well-organized organization.
There we go.
You can't beat that. That's why everyone listening to this podcast right now, you can adapt these basic ideas to any business out there because we're not talking about the greatest chicken sandwich drive-through business. We're talking about a well-organized business that is profitable and is going to continue so because they focus on their consumer.
And they innovate, absolutely.
That's right.
So, Chick-fil-A's not sponsoring this particular podcast.
We have not received anything from Chick-fil-A.
We'll take it.
I like your food. Obviously, I eat it more than Pritch does. There are times you got to go through a drive-through.
It's the model.
It is.
It's the model, and it's their culture.
And, there's nothing worse than grabbing something on the way home for your spouse that's waiting for you at home, and you get it and you open up the bag, and, oh, I'm sorry.
Something's missing.
It's not there.
Right.
Or it's overcooked, undercooked.
Right.
Or or just looks like hell.
Yeah.
Like what did they give you? There's
Right.
nothing worse than looking at, like, I'm sorry, person I care for, I brought you dinner and it's terrible.
Right.
Hey, no one wants that.
No.
No.
I had that experience the other night.
Right.
I will never go back to said restaurant.
So set yourself apart from your competition.
Yeah.
Differentiation. We love that word on this podcast.
Yeah.
The differentiation is not in the food for Chick-fil-A. In fact, there's the whole chicken sandwich wars, right? Everyone's trying to have a chicken sandwich to beat Chick-fil-A, but they're focused on the chicken sandwich. It's not the chicken sandwich.
That's right.
It's the process. It's the customer service. It's the drive-through. It's everything that comes with doing business with Chick-fil-A. And again, I've never heard this or read this, but I'm gonna guess being a vendor of Chick-fil-A is just as convenient. Being a supplier, I guarantee you, Chick-fil-A pays their bills on time.
You're right.
Because
exactly.
customer service is such a tenet of what they do
Yeah.
that they're not going to take those shortcuts that
Right.
they wouldn't take shortcuts in this area on the front-facing side. So,
Yeah.
they create the expectation. They set themselves apart. They differentiate themselves from any competitor out there, not just chicken sandwiches, but any place you could go through a drive-through or get food for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And they have a brand-centric idea around it. It continues to feed into their brand, who they are, and what they do. That creates brand loyalty, and loyal consumers are the most cost-effective consumers. So the idea of they need to recoup their innovation is not necessary. It doesn't apply because they have the most efficient and effective consumers because they've created brand loyalty, which is the most profitable.
Absolutely. Bam. There it
See
is.
how that works? See how all these things feed into each other? So again, if you don't get hung up on what does this cost us?
Right.
And I'm not telling you to ignore cost.
Right.
There's an evaluation process. There's a time where you say we just can't afford this or afford this now. But there are times where you have to understand, you got to play what they call 3D chess, right?
Right.
You have to look way into the future and what is the cost of not innovating?
Right.
What is the cost of not going in better directions? What is the cost of losing consumers
Right.
or not developing loyalty in our current consumers? That again makes predictability, and all the profitability that comes with that. So ask yourself, what does innovation cost? And what does the lack of innovation
Right,
cost?
exactly.
And it's not a singular one step. It's not, sales will go down this quarter. You're looking way too small.
Right.
What is the big picture? What's the 5 and 10 year? At what point, 25 years from now, is someone going to say, that's an iconic brand that I'm going to base a whole 30-minute podcast on your customer service because everything you do is legit?
Right.
How are you going to become that business?
Right.
You're going to have to innovate. You got to start now. You got to go long. You got to think big. You can't be hung up on nickel and dime,
Right.
but being fiduciary the whole time.
Well, sometimes you have to invest in order to get revenue.
There you go. You got to spend money to make
Yeah,
money.
spend money to make
This is
money.
exactly what that's talking about. Not spending money on ostentatious trappings or
Right.
Super Bowl ads.
Right.
Sometimes that's the way, but most of the time not.
Right.
But reinvesting your money in things that ultimately come to the consumer base. That makes the person who does the business transaction with you feel better,
Right.
feel value,
Right.
and already want to do it again before the first transaction's even over.
Exactly. Loyalty.
How could you go wrong with that?
I don't think you can.
There it is, folks. So the lessons learned in a Chick-fil-A drive-through, the brief time I was in a Chick-fil-A drive-through, I jotted a couple of notes down, expanded them out. Of course, Pritch added his expertise as well. Great conversation. I'm super happy about this as we begin the whole new 2021. Things are getting better. Things are going in different directions. Nothing is perfect yet, but we're all going to have to continue to innovate and think about how we serve our consumer. How do we deliver to our audience moving forward? It's going to be different for everyone, but always be looking to do better, and you always have the chance to be successful.
Bam. There it is.
There it is, folks. We appreciate you guys tuning into the Neo Marketing Podcast each and every episode. We absolutely thank you for hanging on for us for this half hour today. Make sure that you hit that subscribe button. Give us a like. Give us the hearts, the thumbs up emoji, however it is. Find us on social media. Let us know if you agree, disagree, if you'd like to to put your 2 cents in on this conversation, hit us up on social media. Let us know however you found this podcast. And of course, we want to hear ideas for future episodes of the Neo Marketing Podcast as well.
Darn right.
We appreciate your feedback. Leave us when you have to subscribe, leave us a review too. We'd appreciate that greatly.
Darn right.
So with that, we will see you next time on the Neo Marketing Podcast. And until then, good luck.
Ciao.
This has been the Golden Group Neo Marketing Podcast. Make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Tell a friend, leave a review, and engage with us on social media. Thanks for listening.